there's no need even to have a college degree at all, or even high school. I mean, if somebody graduated from a great university, that may be an indication that they will be capable of great things, but it's not necessarily the case. You know, if you look at, say, people like Bill Gates or Larry Ellison, Steve Jobs, these guys didn't graduate from college. But if you had a chance to hire them, of course, that would be a good idea.
I would love to talk to Elon Musk, so I'm sure that would be ridiculously fun. I would love to find out. I'd like to ask him about his thought process. And also, I'm really curious about how in the world he manages to do multiple impossible things, because doing one impossible thing is impossible, but doing like 5 impossible things is the product of 5 impossibilities, and that just seems like hyper impossible. But he's managed it. You know, I mean, think about it. Think about what he did. He built an electric car, which is like hard, and then he built a rocket, and then he blasted the car into space on his rocket. Like that's not real. That doesn't happen. But it did happen, and he did it. And so I would love to talk to him.
It's very difficult to start companies and quite painful. I think that's important to bear in mind. I don't know if that's probably not encouraging. Let me put it this way: if you need inspiring words, don't do it. A challenge for entrepreneurs is to say, well, what's the difference between really believing in your ideals and sticking to them versus pursuing some unrealistic dream that doesn't actually have merit? And that is a really difficult thing to tell. Can you tell the difference between those two things? So you need to be sort of very rigorous in your self-analysis. I think certainly extremely tenacious, and then just work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 80 to 100 hour weeks every week. And there need to be reasons to get up in the morning. Life can't just be about solving problems. Otherwise, what's the point? There's got to be things that people find inspiring and make life worth living. If you're creating a company or if you're joining a company, the most important thing is to attract great people. So either join a group that's amazing, that you really respect, or if you're building a company, you've got to gather great people. I mean, all a company is a group of people that have gathered together to create a product or service. And so depending upon how talented and hardworking that group is, and the degree to which they are focused cohesively in a good direction, that will determine the success of the company.
Who do you think is really leading the way forward?
I think SpaceX, probably because of Elon coming from South Africa, having the competitive spirit to make a good bit of money at PayPal, and then put that into his dreams. Elon would like to get involved in selling launches to the Air Force, but he's being opposed some. He almost went broke. He had 3 failures, and one more, in his words, would have taken him out of the business of rocket launches. He sort of succeeded on that one, pretty much. He has a very good rocket, a very good price. I asked him if he wanted to maybe lead efforts toward Mars by allowing people to use his rocket on their project to fly by of Mars, and then combining another company. I said, I'm in touch with very wealthy people, or maybe in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and perhaps we could have some investment money. He said, no, we don't need any money. We'll do it ourselves.
The space business is quite hard to start a company in the space business because it's such a capital-intensive business. So it may be better to do something in solar power, or if you're going to do it in cars, do it as kind of a component supplier for cars or something like that. All those things improve the odds of success.
Okay.
I mean, if other people are putting in 40-hour work weeks and you're putting in 100-hour work weeks, then even if you're doing the same thing, you know that you will achieve in 4 months what it takes them a year to achieve. When I was a kid, I was wondering kind of what's the meaning of life? Like, why are we here? What's it all about? And I came to the conclusion that what really matters is trying to understand the right questions to ask. And the more that we can increase the scope and scale of human consciousness, the better we are able to ask these questions. If somebody is doing something that is useful to the rest of society, I think that's a good thing. Like, it doesn't have to change the world. If you're doing something that has high value to people, I mean, I think that's fine. Like, stuff doesn't need to be changed the world just to be good. But in terms of things that I think are most likely to affect the future of humanity, I think AI is probably the single biggest item in the near term that's likely to affect humanity. So it's very important that we have the advent of AI in a good way. If you could look into the crystal ball and see the future, you would like that outcome, because it is something that could go wrong. As we've talked about many times, we really need to make sure it goes right. Working on AI and making sure it's a great future, that's the most important thing I think right now. Obviously, anything to do with genetics. If you can actually solve genetic diseases, prevent dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that with genetic reprogramming, that would be wonderful. So I think this genetics, it might be the sort of second most important item. I think having a high bandwidth interface to the brain, like we're currently bandwidth limited. We have a digital tertiary self in the form of our email capabilities, like computers, phones, applications. We're effectively superhuman, but we are extremely bandwidth constrained in that interface between the cortex and your sort of that tertiary digital form of yourself. And helping solve that bandwidth constraint would be, I think, very important for the future as well. On signal over noise, a lot of companies get confused. They spend money on things that don't actually make the product better. So, for example, at Tesla, we've never spent any money on advertising. We put all of the money into R&D and manufacturing and design to try to make the car as good as possible. And I think that's the way to go. So, for any given company, just can keep thinking about, are these efforts that people are expending, are they resulting in a better product or service? And if they're not, stop those efforts. You may have heard me say that it's good to think in terms of the physics approach, or first principles, which is, rather than reasoning by analogy, you boil things down to the most fundamental truths you can imagine, and you reason up from there. And this is a good way to figure out if something really makes sense, or if it's just what everybody else is doing. And it's hard to think that way. You can't think that way about everything. It takes a lot of effort. But if you're trying to do something new, it's the best way to think. And that framework was developed by physicists to figure out counterintuitive things, like quantum mechanics. So it's really a powerful method. You guys are the magicians of the 21st century. You know, don't let anything hold you back. Imagination is the limit, and go out there and create some magic.
Entrepreneurship is far more a war of the heart than it is a war of the mind. Like, we can understand what we should do, we just don't do it. And I think that's why we're so much better at giving advice than we are at following it. The biggest entrepreneurial mistakes I've made in my career have all come from splitting my attention. Every one of them. As soon as I did that, my revenue started slowing down in its growth. Like, when you have 3 things going on, any of them can work, but none of them will work unless you pick only one. And I can promise you the competitor who is going to beat you is only doing that one thing. And you think a third of your time is going to beat theirs? No. And I think by doing that, you can actually conquer this cycle and make it past the split where you go crash and burn and then restart the doom loop, or make it to informed optimism and then eventually to the achievement that you want. Any massive company that you know of has existed for multiple decades. And in order for something to exist for multiple decades, the founder has to stay focused on that thing for the whole time. And I measure focus by the quantity and quality of things that you say no to. And I measure commitment, or I define commitment as the elimination of alternatives. And so if you think of marriage as the ultimate commitment, then it is the ultimate commitment because you've eliminated literally every alternative besides this person. And so I think that many business problems and many entrepreneurs would 5x, 10x their business if they simply gave themselves no way out. This is what I'm doing. And the term, burning the boats, but I'm eliminating all alternatives and structuring my life such that I make it very difficult to pursue the alternatives. I think one of the biggest misconceptions when you're an entrepreneur is not understanding the difference between being an owner and being the CEO. And so they might hear that you have a portfolio, they might hear that I have a portfolio and be like, okay, well, they have a portfolio, so I must model that. That guy's tall, I should play basketball. Doesn't work that way, right? So if I want to be rich, I should fly private. Doesn't work that way, right? It's conflating order. And so we must do these things in order to get the outcome. We have to concentrate on only one thing in order to get the outsized return. And that spreading of attention, especially when you're newer in the entrepreneurial career, it's like you already don't know so many things. How do you now want to have 3 sets of unknowns that you want to try and conquer at the same time? And the fallacy of thinking is that I'm going to try all of them and see which one works, but none of them will work because you're waiting to see which one will work. There are 6 stages. You have stage 1, which is uninformed optimism. This is where you see your friend or you see something online and it looks like they're making money or it looks like there's some opportunity and you think, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And you have optimism because it looks great, but it's uninformed because you have no idea what it entails. So then you dive in and you say, okay, I'm going to pursue this thing, whatever. Is it baking cupcakes, or I'm going to do lawn mowing, or I'm going to do crypto trading, whatever. Second step is you get into it and you're like, oh my God, I don't know. There's so many things involved in this and this is significantly more complicated than I expected. So then you become an informed pessimist. You now know that it's hard or significantly harder than you expected. The third stage is you have your crisis of meaning or the valley of despair. So you're continuing to do this stuff, it's continuing to not work, and you keep working, and it keeps not working. And so this is the step, and this is the point of truth. And this is the cycle where the paths of the entrepreneur split. And the vast majority of people take this next step, which is they then say, you know what? There's that thing over there that my other friend's doing. Maybe I should do that instead. And so then they hop back to uninformed optimism, and then they go boom to informed pessimism, and they just go around and around and around, and they live the same 6 months for 20 straight years. Now, the other path from the valley of despair is sticking with it. And so then you become an informed optimist, because now you still understood all the bad stuff, but you also understand the good stuff and how to avoid the bad and maximize the good. And then once you're there, you stick on that path long enough and you end up achieving what you originally thought was really easy and fast. I think that the vast majority of organizations have no idea how to train, and their entire training, their way of getting talent is just, let's hire 10 and we'll just see who works out, rather than being able to take someone and level them up. And I think that the ability to train is one of the largest alphas that exist in organizations, because if you can buy talent at B skill and get them to A+, then you net the delta in profit between what you had to attract and pay the person to come and what they perform at. If you have to use a picking strategy, then you have to pay for current market rate of the skill. Mm-hmm. And so you actually eat into margin because you don't know how to train. There are advantages to speed, and sometimes it still makes sense to bring in the talent because maybe the training requires so much time that it's not worth it. And so from a hiring perspective, because I know we were just talking, this is the theme, we always want to hire for the smallest skill deficiency. And so in low skilled labor, for example, if we have a cupcake bakery and I need somebody to work the counter, that is pretty low skilled labor. And so if there's a number of skills that are required, being able to be on time, smile, be nice, those things are bundled terms that have many skills underneath of them, right? Whereas teaching someone how to use the register might take like 30 minutes. And so it makes sense to hire for attitude and then train aptitude when you have low skilled labor. When you have really high skilled labor, I can't teach someone 10 years of being a CFO for M&A. This is an extreme example, right? And so in that instance, we still hire for the smallest skill deficiency, but I can probably teach someone to be nice under these circumstances faster than I can teach them to be a CFO. If they have everything that I want here, obviously you would want both, but the world isn't perfect. And so we just try to hire for the smallest skill gap, and attitude is a series of skills. And so instead of thinking of things in attitude and aptitude, just think of everything as skills, and then we hire always for the smallest deficiency. Demonstrations of the difference between a beginner and expert. A beginner has binary thinking. So they think this worked or it didn't work. And if it didn't work, then I need a new idea. Rather than having the nuanced thinking of a master or an expert or advanced person who says, what about this, if I click into it, I break it into its component parts, what about this didn't work? Okay, it's not that meta ads don't work or advertising doesn't work, it's that we didn't nail the hook in our ad, or that we didn't make our offer clear enough on the landing page, or it was not congruent with the advertisement, or it was the offer itself wasn't very compelling, or it was just this. Everyone's coming in and saying, yeah, I kind of want that, but this is actually my issue. We're not solving the core problem. So it's always in the details. It's always in the sifting through the many small things that you find the kernel that ends up fixing the business. I mean, I know that Facebook was trying to fix their virality issue, and they were locked in a room for days trying to figure out how they could get more users to retain on the platform, right? People would sign up, but then they wouldn't do anything, and then they drop out. And so finally, Zuck just said, okay, we have some belief that if people have more friends, that they will engage. And so they didn't, and here's the thing, like with the uncertainty, they couldn't prove it. He just was like, I feel like that's better than them not having friends. And so he said, all right, the new goal is 10 friends in 14 days. That's the goal. So we have to create the experience so that we can get it to introduce them to 10 people or connect them with 10 people that they already know on the platform within 14 days. And as soon as that happened, then obviously Facebook took off or continued to grow. And so he wasn't like, oh, Facebook doesn't work anymore or social networks aren't going to be a thing. It's usually way smaller and the adjustment you need to make is much more nuanced than what you originally expect. If the foundational principle of like cutting hair, mowing lawns, whatever, it's like this problem exists and I can charge a certain amount and make a profit on it, then there's nothing wrong with the business. It's just what is the constraint that's holding us back, and then usually zooming into the constraint and realizing there's 20 things that are contributing to the outcome, not one. And that's where expertise and you develop that expertise by trying and failing. Yeah. And that's just the name of the game. And so I think you have to have an incredibly high tolerance for failure without internalizing it and feeling like you yourself are a failure as a result of failure. The potential of an organization is directly correlated with the aggregate intellectual horsepower of everyone contained within it. And so if you are the smartest person in the business, and you can do everyone's job better than everyone in your company, then it means that the limit of the business is purely based on one person's horsepower and one person's life experiences. And that will be the cap. And basically, it doesn't matter how smart you are, you can't live 100 lifetimes. Like you can learn quickly, sure, there's some people who can learn faster than others, but you're not gonna be able to live 1,000 lifetimes. And so, as a business grows, more expertise is required. And I think the easiest litmus test for this is if you look at the richest people in the world, almost none of them own 100% of their business. So number one, most of them don't even own 50. Like most of them are small percentages. Jensen Huang's at 4% for NVIDIA. Bezos is at 7 or 9% for Amazon. I think Elon's at 20 for Tesla, like small percentages. And it's because it takes a lot of horses to take a chariot to the moon, right? And so basically, as you put in more intellectual horsepower, the potential peak of the business goes so much higher, so much faster. Keith Verbois he was one of the original PayPal Mafia guys, has a really good analogy for this. And he talks about it in terms of barrels and ammunition. And he says, so as soon as you get some product market fit, the business starts to grow and you say, okay, we need to start shipping things faster. And this works the same with a services business, a physical products business, software business, the concept's the same. And so what happens is you then hire a lot of people and you assume that your throughput is going to increase proportionally. So we have 10 people, we hire 50, we should 5x our output. And then you quickly realize that that is not the case. And so what happens is there are people who are rate limiters for an organization, and those are the barrels. So think about like a Civil War barrel, old cannon, and you've got these cannonballs next to it. He said most people are ammunition. And so you bring more ammunition, but you're still gonna be limited by the one barrel capacity of how many shots can get taken by the barrel. And so you need to find more barrels. So you have to go from 1 barrel to 2 barrels, 2 barrels to 3 barrels, and that becomes an increase in capacity or throughput for the organization. And there are very few of those. In a different, I can't remember the law, but it's some organizational law, but the square root of the number of people in a company generate 50% of the work. So if you have 100 people in an organization, 10 people are responsible for 50% of the value that's created.
Facts.
Right. And so the thing is I think the real game of entrepreneurship is that your standards rise over time. And it's unfortunate because we hear things that other entrepreneurs tell us, it's all about the people, stupid. And then you're like, sure, but look at and it's like, no, you're not hearing it. And I don't know, there are some, I think Williamson talks about this, how there's like some lessons that for some reason, it's like we have to learn for ourselves. I still believe that it's like we can operationalize this at a lower level so that we don't have to learn it for ourselves. But like I'm convinced, I haven't figured it out yet. But so every entrepreneur can resonate with this, which is every business that I've started, I've gotten to the success of the business prior way faster. And I kind of liken it to a video game where it's like you beat level 1 and then, you get to level 2 and it's like you spend months trying to beat this boss and you finally figure out how to beat the boss and it's like great. And then you spend another 3 months beating boss 3. And let's say you start the game over with a new character. It's like you just zoom through level 1, 2, and 3 and then you get to level 4 and you're like, shoot, now I got to spend time. It's like virgin land. Like, I don't know how to beat this yet. And so I think that happens for archetype finding for skill and talent within an organization. And so
say that again.
So if you have functions across an organization, there are people who are going to drive results within that function. And the first time you hire a salesperson, for example, you don't know what you're looking for. And so you just hire a human who says they can sell. And maybe they can, maybe they can't. And then you cycle through, you try to train them, that doesn't work, does work, whatever. And then finally, let's say you cycle through 3 sales guys and finally you find a killer. And then you have this pattern recognition, you're like, okay, that's what I'm looking for. And then all of a sudden you try and approximate that person or that archetype as much as you can. And so when you start your second company, you're like, oh, I can quickly staff up sales because I know what I'm looking for. But then you're like, shoot, I've never really nailed sales manager yet. And so then you cycle through, you start whacking away at the boss, and then you have to end up firing the boss at the level because you're like, oh God, this didn't work. And then 6 months are gone because you had to find them, recruit them, hire them, train them, and then find out they sucked, and then start over again. And maybe it takes 18 months to really find the right sales manager. And then you're like, okay, I know what that looks like. But I still don't have a director of marketing. What does that look like? And so it's basically developing this pattern recognition across all functions of the business so that you know what exceptional looks like. And then over time, what happens is as a business grows, your ability to attract talent increases. And so then your standards also grow. And then you find out that there's even more nuance to this, which is that there's a director of sales at a $1 to $10 million level, which is a different looking person from $10 to $100 million level. And it continues to go all the way up. And so it's basically building this repertoire of identifying patterns. And if you talk to, I would say, more experienced entrepreneurs now, they don't talk about building businesses, it's like assembling. You just assemble the pieces and you just know that this is how it's all gonna flow together. And that fundamentally is basically what I try and decode within the content that I have, so that it's like, here's a pattern for how you can recognize this. Here's a pattern for how you recognize this, so that you can just move faster through the levels to get to where you want to go. And so to loop back to the original question, which is how important are people in an organization? People are the organization. And so if you ever want to build enterprise value, it's building the collective consciousness of the organization, the skills and how they collaborate together towards a specific outcome. And so knowing how to staff that up is the job. So the simplest way of attracting somebody to your business when you don't know how to do the job or know who to look for is to unfortunately do the job yourself. And then once you can break down the job, we follow 3 Ds, which is document, demonstrate, duplicate. That's how we train anybody. So first, you have to document everything that you do to successfully do the job. And that's step by step into a checklist. Then you demonstrate. So you do this checklist in front of the person that you're trying to bring on. Then they duplicate, they do the checklist in front of you. What's interesting about that 3-step process is that you'll often find when you try to demonstrate following the checklist, you don't follow your checklist. And so then you have to adjust the checklist until you actually follow the checklist. And then when you can consistently follow that checklist and get the output, then you can have them do that checklist. And so I think this is why bootstrap founders, I think oftentimes will find they tend to know more about more things because they had to learn them in order to teach them. Now, what's really interesting about what you said about accidentally finding that star at 3 or 4 years in is that I think that happens to almost everyone. Well, hopefully it happens. The people who end up making it, it happens to almost everyone. Because then you realize, oh my God, like if I had 4 of these people, like we could change the world. So it was one of the first people that you're like, oh my God, I hired that person, it changed everything. So my CFO in Gym Launch had taken 4 companies from 0 to 100 million. She had done over 40 M&A transactions. Her largest one was 5 billion, super experienced. She was at the very end of her career. And she was like, I'll take you guys, I'll take this one last ride with you guys. And so, you know, mind you, Layla and I'm 26 or 27 at the time. Layla's 23, 24, and we're sitting across the table from a very experienced business person being like, please help us. And so one of the things that she taught me that I'll never forget is she said, the grass is always greener on the other side. You just don't know that it's fertilized. She's Southern, so she had this deep Southern accent. She's like, there's everywhere. And so she's like, I've been in enough businesses to know that all businesses have. And so you just have, you don't know about, do know about, and you're in this business. And so this is, you know. And that has been so profoundly impactful in my life because it was so hard for me to break the cycle, really hard for me. I mean, I gave you my life story of the many businesses that I've been involved in. And so like the entrepreneurial ADD has been so real for me. And I've made some of the biggest career mistakes by just pursuing and splitting my attention between multiple endeavors. And the thing is we have a linear life. And so it's an unfair but true comparison of the opportunity cost. And every exceptionally successful entrepreneur that I know has just stuck with one thing for such an inordinate amount of time. And I think there's a quote by, I want to say Shane Parrish, but he said, success is doing the obvious thing for an extraordinary period of time without believing that you're smarter than you are. And it's just like, we know what we need to do, so we don't need to make our lives more complex. Complexity will come with scale, I promise. And so just simply trying to do more of what you're already doing well is already hard enough. Don't add anything else. And so like, if you need to write some sort of commitment of like, I'm just going to stick with this, then do that. What happens is, when we were talking about the levels earlier, about like beating the bosses. So what happens is, you know how to beat boss 1 through 3 of the game. And so then you just say, okay, well, I'm just gonna start the game over and beat boss. I mean, this time it's gonna be different. But then you just get to level 3 again, and then you're stuck again. And so people just keep getting up to level 3 and new endeavors over and over again because they never learned how to get past that boss. And so you just have to confront the uncertainty of knowing that you don't know how to do it, but that you will figure it out if you keep doing enough repetitions. And that's where you talk to as many people as you can. You see what they said, you consolidate it all, and you say, I think this is the highest likely path. It might not work, but I do believe fundamentally that if we cut people's hair well, and we do it for a long period of time, we will have a thriving business. And if we have a really good model from that thing, we might be able to open up another location. And if we keep our costs down, we might be able to have an actual model that we could either invest our own capital or bring somebody else and take it national. Or like all of these, like I have yet to find a business that can't get to $100 million a year, that has a permutation of it that exists. You're a dry cleaner, fine. Well, cool, we'll build the model, and either we're gonna license the model, we can franchise the model out, we can get outside investors, we can scale it nationally, we can do it. But the crazy goals are only crazy because people have crazy timelines. They're actually very sane goals if you extend the timeline out. If you have a true 10-year goal or a true 20-year goal, almost anything's accomplishable. I mean, almost every multi-billion-dollar company is about, it's usually between like years 6 and 10 when companies get to kind of like those big numbers. And most people who are listening to this are 5 years into entrepreneurship, but you're 6 months into the thing that you've been working on right now. And you keep restarting the clock for getting to year 10 every time you start over. And I think that's the part that it took me a very long time to figure out. And I think it takes a lot of entrepreneurs. Like, everyone messes around with a lot of stuff in the beginning because you just don't know what you're doing. And so in my experience, it takes about 5 years for most entrepreneurs that I know to just like find something that works. It takes about 5 years to figure out which way is north. Right? Yeah. And then it takes like another 5 years. And a lot of people, that's it. Like they restart, they go off, crash and burn. And it takes another 5 years to build something that can create generational wealth. So it's about a 10-year slug. And here's the really hard truth about it. If you have a job right now, for almost all of that 5 years, you quit your job because you don't want to work as hard as you are and you want to make more money. And as soon as you quit, you will realize that you are now going to work way harder than you were and you're going to make less money for an extended period of time. The one benefit is that you get to claim all responsibility for how little you make and how much you work because you're like, my boss is an idiot and it's me. But it's the truth. And I think that in some ways, having that optimistic ignorance is actually one of the really redeeming traits of entrepreneurs. And one of the really hard parts is that the biggest jump you have to make gets so immediately reinforced from the freedom you have from being able to, chart your own path. But that big success of quitting one thing and starting another, you need to immediately forget. And I think that fundamentally, that is why so many entrepreneurs keep doing it, is because the first time you do it, it's the biggest rush ever. You quit your job, you do the business, and you get some first traction. And that first dollar that you make when the new business is like the best dollar ever, right? But it's such a strong reinforcer that what does it reinforce? It reinforces stopping what you're doing and starting something else. And so I think one of the fundamental errors of entrepreneurship is that sometimes the jumping ship to start this thing is the lesson that you need to immediately unlearn, because after that, you have to just stick with it for a very long period of time.
One day, or day one. Respect is given when it's earned. No one's gonna give you. Go out and earn it, work hard, get up with me before the sun. You gotta put in the work with our own two hands. It's the work we put in when nobody's watching that really matters. Think for more. There's a lot of managers and there's agents and there's people involved, there's business affairs. You have a lot of people doing the talking, but at the end of the day, no one can talk on your behalf better than you. And I realize that the person I compete with most is just me. It's you versus you. We had a little efficiency apartment in Hawaii, and we were evicted out of there, couldn't pay the rent. The rent was $280 a month. We eventually got kicked out. When we got kicked out, I was 15 years old. I'll never forget it. I was standing there at the door. There was not the padlock, but the notice. They tell you in a week you gotta go. If you don't, then the Honolulu Police Department will come and they'll escort you out. In that moment, I saw my mom crying, and because I'm a mama's boy, and that kind of pain really impacted me. And I thought then, I want to do everything that I can to make sure we never get evicted like this again, and make sure that she is never this upset again. I didn't even know what that meant at 15 years old. It just meant I have to work. I have to work. I have to do something with my own two hands. So I have a philosophy these days that you got to put in the work with our own two hands, because this is the stuff that you can control. We control the controllables, as we say. The other part is a competitive nature that is in my DNA and it's in my blood, just like it runs in all of our constitution and our makeup here in this room, and yours included, where I love the competition, I love to win, and I also love to learn. I don't say lose, I say I love to learn. So I would say it's a combination of that. There's something I think that we all can tap into that becomes our juice and our wiring. For me, you bring up my old man. My dad was a professional wrestler at a time when professional wrestling, I think, wasn't as globally renowned as it is today. My dad was paycheck to paycheck kind of guy, and when I decided to get into professional wrestling, we had the biggest fight about it. And ultimately he said, look, I'm not too sure if you have anything to offer. I mean, it got to that level.
How old are you at this time?
I was 22 years old, 23. And I understand what he meant in his limited capacity to love. He meant, look, I live in this little apartment in Tampa, right up the road, I-75. I don't want this life for you. I think there's more for you out there. And I said, yeah, but I got to follow my gut and my instinct. So I bring that up to say, along the road of life, we always have these moments that are seminal moments where somebody, sometimes it's a loved one like my old man, sometimes it's a friend, sometimes it's a boss, sometimes it's a stranger who says, you can't do it, you're not good enough, don't even try, pack your stuff and go home. And what I have found, and I'm sure you guys will agree, is that when you take that kind of action, that kind of step of following your gut and your intuition, taking that step, whatever it is, the universe has a funny way of meeting you halfway. What drives me is, I'll take it back, there was some cheers in here at the University of Miami. When I stepped onto that campus in Coral Gables, we were hungry dogs, but also it was there that I started to understand, number one, it was really challenging to be a student athlete back then and certainly now. It's almost like having a pro career at the same time as being a student, especially today. But what Miami allowed me to do, that place and that culture, that winning culture that we all want and that we're all part of, it was almost like a forcing mechanism. What it allowed me to do was realize there's more and think for more. You don't have to be just this, especially when there's a lot of people who are against you. And at that time, University of Miami, we were the bad boys of the game at that time. And we played ball, won national titles, etc. But at our core, it was, no, we could still be dominant, but we could still go for more. So I learned that you don't have to stay in something like this. You could do more. And then I started to understand, as I started to get down the road, that, oh, you don't do it by yourself, because I used to be very hands-on, micromanaging, and it served me for a little while. Then I started to realize it started to be counterproductive for me. Oh, you don't do it by yourself. Bring in a team of people. Choose your enemies up, choose your partners up, people who are a lot smarter than I am, which isn't hard to be, at what they do. And then you can continue just to fortify this idea that let's do more. The work ethic, the drive, that hunger to compete, it never goes away. Reached this point in my career where I started to realize, oh, I've done pretty good, and we're sitting up top on this mountain. And I realized this happened, probably it was a big revelation for me about a year ago, where I thought, okay, I'm on top of this mountain. A few things can happen from here. I reached this point in my life. We could either stay here and enjoy the view and bask in it, or we could go back down the mountain, right off into the sunset. And I thought, well, the first two don't seem like it's in my DNA. I know what we should do. Let's go build more mountain. Not only let's go build more mountain, but the difference is, for me, is now bringing everybody with us. As we go along in the road of life, you become so uniquely focused, myopic on the thing that you want to attract and compete for and accomplish. If it's worth something to you, you got to put in the effort. There was a lot of naysayers and there was a lot of cynicism as I was getting into Hollywood, and I get it, because you were successful in another place and now Hollywood comes knocking and now you want to try and come in and make a name for yourself in Hollywood. It was a little tricky because I was coming out of the world of professional wrestling. It's just a unique animal at that time and machine. So when I got there, a lot of people around me at that time who were my part of my management team said, listen, if you really want to make it in Hollywood, then you can't call yourself The Rock. You got to lose weight. Don't talk about wrestling. You have to look and walk and talk and act like these guys, and these guys are the biggest stars in the world at that time. Johnny Depp, Will Smith, etc. If you don't know any better, you buy into that stuff, like I bought into that back then. But then you start to realize something starts to eat at your gut about, well, this just doesn't feel right because I'm not being authentic, I'm not being myself. So finally, I said, a few years later, I said, I can't do this anymore. I have to be myself. Because it's never been done doesn't mean it can't be done. It just means we got to figure out a different path. And then this unique thing happened when I was myself, and we can apply it to all of us here, business, life, etc., is Hollywood conformed. Truth is, in wrestling, it's a little different. You still compete, you still have to keep your head on a swivel. And I always like to say it's shark-infested waters in that world, in this world too, business, entertainment, sports entertainment. The ones who are confident in themselves, confident in their success, and want to see not only the business grow, but want to see people do well. And especially, I feel like I'm a decent guy, you want to see somebody who's a pretty good person do well. It's the people you don't meet, the ones behind the scenes. Those are the ones who are trying to hold you down. Those are the ones who are chicken anyway, who will never come to you, you'll never see them. And I realized instead of me trying to find them or try to figure out, well, who made that call and why did this happen? I thought, okay, I'll always remember the people who were good to me. And then I realized the person I compete with most is just me. It's you versus you. And I think that's something we can all, attest to. The most important thing is to be what I was and am and will be tomorrow, and that's real. And again, that's when everything starts to conform.
Did you ever stop and ask yourself, why is it that some people are more successful than others? Why is it that some people make more money, live longer, have better relationships?
I was never good at anything. I got fired from multiple jobs. I even got fired from a job pumping gas once. Can you imagine that? Being fired for pumping gas because you're no good. They came out and said, you're no good at pumping gas. How can you be no good? Little old ladies can pump gas. And here I was no good at pumping gas. Anyway, so I got fired. I went from job to job. And then I discovered that all people who are successful are excellent at what they do. You know the old question they asked Willie Sutton, the bank robber, why do you rob banks? He said, that's where the money is. Well, being in the top 10% is where the money is. So what you have to do is you have to pay any price and make any sacrifice to get into the top 10% in your field.
How do people become successful and others don't? How does one become a part of the top 10%? In this video, you're going to learn 5 tips from the legendary Brian Tracy. A renowned author, speaker, and success strategist, Brian has spent decades unlocking the secrets of achievement and fulfillment. Are you ready to become a part of the top 10%?
Tip number 1, follow where success leads.
The first thing I did is I asked, how does it work? How do people succeed in this field? And then I buried myself and immersed myself. I spent hours and hours and hours studying, and then I did what the most successful people did. Interesting point. We say that nature is neutral. In other words, nature doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care if you're tall or short or male or female or black or white, educated or uneducated. Nature doesn't care. All that nature cares is that you do what successful people do. It's like making a recipe. Nature doesn't care if you follow a recipe. If you follow the recipe exactly, you get the dish. Nature doesn't care who's doing it. And that's the wonderful thing about our society. It's basically like justice. It's blind, is nature doesn't care. In fact, there are a lot of people who are not as smart and not as talented as you who are doing vastly better than you, not because they're better, but because they're just following proven success methods.
As Brian explains, success leaves clues. There is a reason the repeated formula equals the same results. Do you have someone you admire that is successful? Look at what they did to become successful and try and repeat that. Study those who you are trying to be like, and you'll be amazed at what will happen. Tip number 2, dream big.
Practice what is called back from the future thinking and project forward. Develop a vision of yourself as happy, healthy, wealthy, thin. Practice what top people practice, which is what is called idealization. You project forward several years and you imagine that your life is perfect in every way. Imagine that you have no limitations. Imagine that you have all the time and all the money and all the friends and all the contacts and all the education, all the experience, and that you could be or have or do anything you want in life. If you could, what would it be? If your life were perfect in 5 years, what would it look like? How much would you be earning? How much would you be worth? What kind of a family life would you have? What kind of health would you have? What kind of car would you be driving? What would your life be like if you could wave a magic wand and make it perfect in every way? Now, what we have found is this is the starting point of great riches, and it's the starting point of great success in life, is for you to have a dream or a vision of a wonderful future.
It's easy to get lost in the grandiose of big dreaming, but it's important to have those big dreams and visions if you ever want to be successful. By creating something that you can shoot for, it helps motivate and reminds you on the hard days what you're going after. Tip number 3, commit to excellence.
You know the old question they asked Willie Sutton, the bank robber, why do you rob banks? He said, that's where the money is. Well, being in the top 10% is where the money is. So what you have to do is you have to pay any price and make any sacrifice to get into the top 10% in your field. Now, here's the good news. If you're doing what you love to do, you will want to be in the top 10% in your field. If you don't want to be excellent at what you're doing, it means you're in the wrong field. It just means that you're marking time, you're treading water. And there's a lot of people who are in their field and they do their job and they go home at night, they don't think about their work and so on. And this kind of an attitude means that you have no future.
To be successful, you can't give the bare minimum and expect the world to bend to your will and give you what you want. If you don't give 150% every day, you won't have what you want. To become successful, you must be committed to being the best each and every day. Tip number 4, persuasion is key.
It's very much like cooking in the kitchen. Is just because you have all the right ingredients in the kitchen does not mean that you can cook. So learning how to sell, and I teach this, and I've taught
You have
this.
a great book also.
I have several books, and I have taken people who are starting at the bottom and they've become rich because they learned how to sell. And the more they sold, the more confident they become. And the more persuasive they were, the more effective they were, the higher was their self-confidence, the higher their self-esteem.
Having good services and products is one thing, but to be able to persuade your customers and your target audience that they need what you are providing is a whole other thing. Persuasion is key when it comes to becoming successful. To be able to convince someone to buy in to what you're providing is an extremely important aspect to becoming successful. Tip number 5, improve someone's life with what you have to offer.
Because everyone is skeptical, and because the average person in France or the US receives 3,000 to 5,000 commercial messages, advertisements of some kind each day, everywhere. People are skeptical, so you have to break through that skepticism. And the way you do that is you think, what is it that my potential customer really needs and wants to improve their life? What are the problems that they have that my product can solve? What are the needs that they have that my product can satisfy? What are the goals that they have that my product can help them to achieve? And then you say to them, if you have this problem or need, my product or service is something you should look at, and let me explain to you why it can help you. That's how you sell. You sell by teaching, by finding people who can benefit from your product or service far more than the cost, and then you teach them how your product or service can help them to improve their life.
Part of the reason there are so many successful people who continue to be successful is because they have solved a problem that others need a solution to. If you look at people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, and Bill Gates, part of the reason they became successful and legendary is because they saw the answer to a problem people were facing.
Nobody ever makes it on their own. One of the great lessons of life. We all need help from others to get over the rough spots on the journey of life.
But remember, success isn't just about knowing what to do. It's about taking action. As Brian often says, move fast, take action, get it done. So as you close this video, make a commitment to apply at least one principle you've learned today. What was your favorite part of the video? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe to keep up with our latest videos.
See, they watch the stock market, they don't watch the debt. And the repo market, the repurchase market, is one of the biggest markets in the world. And the Fed is bailing that one out now. So the average American is watching the stock market, but not what's really going on. And school is BS. It's watered down. It's not appropriate for the real world.
The rules of money are changing fast. The wealthy are shifting their game plans, and those who cling to the old ways risk being left behind. But one man has always stayed ahead of the curve: Robert Kiyosaki. With 2025 on the horizon, we are sharing his powerful strategies to break free from financial struggles and build lasting wealth.
My first investment was a gold coin in Hong Kong. I bought a Krugerrand. I was flying off an aircraft carrier in Vietnam, and I went to Hong Kong and I bought a gold Krugerrand. The date was 1972. The reason the date's important is because in 1972 it was illegal for Americans to own gold. So I had to smuggle that little puppy into America. I put it in my pocket, came off the ship, and nobody checked, you know. But I felt like a criminal as I smuggled this gold coin because it was illegal for Americans to own gold after 1933 under Roosevelt. But that gold coin today is worth almost $2,000.
The one gold coin?
Yeah, and I still have it. So
what'd you pay for it?
$50.
$50 to $2,000. 1972?
Yeah, it just sat there. So I have and so I never, because I understand money, that, you know, quantitative counterfeiting and zero interest rates, I don't trust the dollar. So for most of my life, I've saved gold and silver, and not ETFs. I stay completely out of, you know, I know that's your world, but my world is completely into the hard assets. So I have millions in gold coins and silver coins. I just kept saving it because I don't trust the dollar. So everybody can buy a silver coin today for $20. A silver eagle is $20. But how many people will go to a coin shop and buy it? Probably none. Less than 0.1% of Americans own precious metals. And silver today is 50% below its all-time high. So silver is the biggest bargain sitting in the market as we speak today. You know, it's about $20. It should go to 50. So at $20, and I tell my friends, I go, oh, yeah, think about it. That's the problem. So everybody can afford $20. You know, kids can afford $20. The thing is, people won't do it, and you know that too. When you deal with people, most people are pretty sedentary. You know, they want to do the same old thing. Sure. I'm happy. Nothing's going to happen. Oh, you're just trying to scare me.
When it comes to making the first move on creating another income stream, it can be overwhelming. As Robert says here, the biggest challenge for most people when it comes to creating wealth is taking the first step there. This is the time to do your research and find out what kind of investments are best for you and your lifestyle. Do you want to go more of the hard assets route and invest in precious metals and real estate? Or would you rather go into crypto and stocks? By doing your research and making an informed decision on where to get started, you are already ahead of the game.
I'm not telling you what to buy, I'm just telling you how to think. So Nassim Taleb has a book called Anti-Fragile, which is good.
Excellent read.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. He's a smart guy. Oh, yeah. But he writes about, you know, how we have in school today, we're raising snowflakes. You have to have safe rooms. You can't trigger, you can't say anything, you know. So we're raising a bunch of snowflakes. And he says the guy that's going to survive is somebody who's not fragile, anti-fragile. So what he says is this: whatever doesn't kill you will make you stronger. So he says when you go to the gym and you pump weights, you push 100 pounds. That means the next time you push, you might go 105. So bad times will make the strong stronger. And bad times will make the snowflakes weaker. So the thing is, get, you know, as my Mexican friends would say, get some cojones, you know, get some balls out there and get ready for whatever's coming. Don't run and hide and say, oh, Trump should have saved me or Bernie's going to save me. So the big thing is this anti-fragile is good, but another thing they should know is the bigger something gets, i.e. our banks, the more fragile.
An important thing to know when it comes to the get rich and thrive lifestyle is to understand you aren't going to be handed things on a silver platter. Life just doesn't work that way. You need to be prepared for the hardships, the frustration, and the failures. This isn't for the faint of heart. If you are up for the challenge of being able to handle hardship before reaping the benefits of your investments, then you are well on your way to becoming rich in 2025.
So when I came back from in Vietnam in January of '73, the first thing my rich dad said to me was go to school to learn how to invest in real estate. It wasn't real estate, it was how to use debt and taxes. Debt and taxes make the rich richer. Debt and taxes make the poor and middle class poor. So all the rich guys who are doctors and lawyers or, you know, those guys, they're getting creamed. They don't know why.
Doctors are getting creamed.
Oh yeah, they're making more money, but the take home is less.
Sure.
You know, my doctor just yelled at me, he's happy, he says, oh, guess what, I finally made $1 million. And I said, yeah, this was just 3 weeks ago. And so I said, yeah, well, how much you pay in tax? This is 2014. He says 750,000 in taxes. So his net was about 400,000. That's not bad. But when I make $1 million, I keep $1 million. And the reason is because I don't make it by working for money. See, if you work for money, you're taxed. So that's why lesson number 1 in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the rich don't work for money. What we do instead is we create businesses as entrepreneurs. We acquire real estate. I don't invest in the stock market. Okay? So the reason is because as entrepreneurs, I have more control over my income, how much I make, and how much I pay in taxes. And because I'm an entrepreneur as well as an investor in real estate, I pay 0 tax. So every time I make, let's say, $1 million as an entrepreneur, I immediately invested in real estate and I have a 4-to-1 step up. So I put $1 million in real estate, I get $4 million from the bank. That's why I love banks. But the banks are screwing everybody else, terrible, but it's good for me.
That's why you said when you print, it's good for you, but when you print, it's bad for people that work for money.
Because when you print, savers get creamed and people who work for money get creamed. When they print, debtors get rich. You see, debt and taxes make the rich richer, and debt and taxes make the poor middle class poorer. See, when you look at history, anytime a country printed, they corrupted the money supply. The empire collapsed. So the Romans tried it. And it was called debasing the currency. Debasing means they took a silver coin and they mixed base metals like nickel and copper and those things inside. America started doing the same debasing in 1964. So when you look at our silver coins, in 1963, they were pure, not pure silver, they were silver. And in 1964, you go, oh, what's that little copper tinge there? That's debasing. So throughout history, anytime a government has debased or printed their money, the economy eventually collapses. So the Romans tried it, Zimbabwe did it, the Germans did it, Milosevic did it, China did it. So every time they print money, history will tell you the same thing.
Robert is a very big advocate for people getting a financial education because it not only helps you get rich, but it better helps you understand how you can get there. And one way you can get rich is by getting into debt and using it to your advantage. While this sounds like the complete opposite thing you'd want to do to get rich, think again. If managed and used correctly, debt can help you reach your financial goals in no time. Margin investing, leverage ETFs, and short selling are a few examples of using debt to increase your assets, which in turn increase your finances.
So the point is, everybody can do something, but you got to figure out what you can do.
As Robert says, everyone can do something to better their financial lives and incomes, whether that be through investing, real estate, or whatever you find works best for you. The biggest thing to remember is that you need to put in the work to make it happen. It's time to get up and get to work in 2025. What was your favorite moment in the video? Who should we learn from next? Let us know in the comments below and make sure to like and subscribe to keep up with our latest videos.
The indoctrination continues. It's the factory of school and the factory of work saying, fit in all the way. Do exactly what you're told and you'll get a prize. On the other hand, there's this false narrative of authenticity, of social media, of being the next Kardashian, of somehow being this authentic voice that everyone wants to listen to, being an influencer. And that's like winning the lottery. That doesn't happen either. Life on this planet 500 years ago is different than now. The fear we evolved into from generations doesn't know any of that. It simply knows how to trigger fight or flight. It knows how to make us feel like the world is about to end. And it kept us alive in the old days, but now it's a trap.
Seth Godin is a visionary entrepreneur, best-selling author, and world-renowned marketing guru. Known for his groundbreaking approach, Seth has inspired millions to not only think differently, but act boldly through his blog and his books like The Dip, Linchpin, Tribes, and now This is Strategy. He's built and sold 2 successful businesses and authored 21 bestsellers in 39 languages. How does somebody know, like, okay, this is the time just to grind and keep going versus I actually really need to pivot here? What's the difference?
Is that being the best at what you do in the world in which you live is enormously valuable. How do you become the best one? You don't quit when everyone else does. So that leads to the next question, which is, how do we know when to quit? And my answer is...
The Icon's a show where we learn life lessons from those who achieved iconic success. And today, I'm so excited to be having this conversation with somebody I've been learning from for over 2 decades, Seth Godin. Welcome to the Icons by Motiversity.
Well, thank you for having me. 39 languages, but I only wrote them in one language. I had help on the other.
Fair enough. I mean, speaking of remarkable, you touch on this idea of being remarkable or being unique in a way that is specific to you. And I think that everyone is drawn to that in a certain way. How do we become remarkable?
We begin by understanding what remarkable means. It doesn't mean standing out. It doesn't mean having a gimmick. It doesn't mean being the only one in the room. It means worth making a remark about. If somebody else talks about you in a positive way, you are, by definition, remarkable. Why would they do that? They're only going to do it because it's good for them. People don't talk about you because they're rooting for you. They talk about you because they're rooting for themselves. So what it means to be remarkable is to be of service, to bring enough empathy to the table, to not fit in, to not buy the indoctrination, but to stand out on behalf of the people you're trying to make a difference for.
And how did you start to uncover this idea or this kind of philosophy? Was there an episode early on or something that happened early on?
Well, in my book, Purple Cow, I wrote about my late friend, Lionel Poulin. Lionel had died in a tragic helicopter crash, and I wanted to dedicate a book to him. I didn't have a book. I had been out of the publishing world for a little while. So I wrote a book inspired by what I learned from him. Now, we can say a lot of things about Paris, France, but we can agree they have a lot of bakeries. They have more bakeries selling bread than just about anywhere in the world. So why is there a line out the door, still to this day, when his daughter runs it at the Poulin Bakery? It's not because he has a gimmick. It's because the bread he makes and the way he makes it is worth flying across the world to get. It's worth bringing to your friend's house. It's worth talking about because it gives you status. It gives you connection. He didn't do that by copying what other people do. He did that by determining what would be worth making.
You've got this way of seeing the same thing we're all seeing, but from a slightly different angle. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, I now see it the way Seth sees it. It's amazing. What do you feel like the world needs to see slightly differently right now?
You know, there are two things going on, particularly for young people. One is the indoctrination. The indoctrination continues. It's the factory of school and the factory of work saying, fit in all the way. Do exactly what you're told and you'll get a prize. And we're discovering that indoctrination with the issues of caste and injustice that come with it doesn't really work for a lot of people. On the other hand, there's this false narrative of authenticity, of social media, of being the next Kardashian, of somehow being this authentic voice that everyone wants to listen to, being an influencer. And that's like winning the lottery. That doesn't happen either. So those are the two poles. And what we have to do instead is dig in and figure out where the system is. Why are we being indoctrinated? Where are the opportunities to contribute in a way where we can point to and say, I helped grow that. That big problems demand small changes. Small changes over time that add up to making a big difference.
You touch on this experience that a lot of people are going through, and we work with a lot of youth. A lot of youth watch our channels, and you can feel their fears, you can feel their hopes, you can feel all sorts of things, but you talk about fear in a really interesting way. You talk about it as kind of an indication that you're onto something meaningful. How have you managed fear, or how could those who are listening understand fear differently?
Life on this planet 500 years ago is different than now. Many people, billions of us, have a roof over our head. We know where dinner is coming from. But fear, the fear we evolved into from generations, doesn't know any of that. It simply knows how to trigger fight or flight. It knows how to make us feel like the world is about to end. And it kept us alive in the old days. But now it's a trap. So writer's block. Writer's block doesn't exist. It was recently invented. It's a myth. There's no such thing as writer's block. But people say they can't write. They're afraid. Well, My friend Steve Pressfield calls that resistance. And resistance is that feeling we get when we're about to do something important. And our option is the same way a marathon runner views getting tired as a symptom they're doing a good job. Being afraid is a symptom that you might be about to do something that involves responsibility and making an impact. And I look for that feeling. If I don't feel it, I'm not trying hard enough.
So it's so interesting that fear, I mean, I think a lot of us would try to get to a place where we learn to live with fear, but you almost learn to look for fear. That's kind of a really interesting, almost signal to know I am doing something important. I am feeling a certain way, but that doesn't mean run. That can mean something totally different. And I mean, I think it's pretty clear to a lot of people we live in a world right now that's so full of fear, and hopefully that can switch or change. But in this time, you've decided to write a book on strategy. Why strategy?
I think the big challenge we have is people don't even know what strategy is. We don't talk about strategy. We think it has to do with planning. Plans are about you exercising your agency and authority. We make a plan and then we work to make it true. Strategy isn't that. Strategy acknowledges that there are other people, that there are other systems, that what we're thinking of doing might not work. And it's hard to talk about that, to say, I'm going to go build these assets and go on this project, and it might not work, but this is my strategy. So instead, we default to following the crowd, whatever the crowd is doing. So saying, I'm going to go on TikTok and get 50 million followers and then make a lot of money, that's like saying, I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket. And people know that the lottery isn't a strategy. Strategy is a philosophy of becoming. It is a reasonable and rational plan of how we are going to engage with other people's plans so that we can all get to where we want to go.
You wrote this line that the future is like an unvisited city, but we can see it from a distance. And I felt like just reading that sentence helped me make sense of so many conversations that happen in a strategic way where you've got some ideas, you've got vantage, you've got all sorts of plans, but so does everyone else that's living in this city. How did you come up with that, or what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm not exactly sure where my ideas come from. I think they come from where everybody else's ideas come from. The difference is I write them down. What we do when we seek to be creative, to have an idea, is we make an assertion and then we tell a story about it. I look for things that don't make sense, and then I try to understand why they could be, because the world should make sense if you understand what underlies it. So the opportunity that someone has as they're coming up in the world is to say, not, that's working, I'm going to go do it, but to say, why is that working? What are the underpinnings that led to a line being out front of that place and not this place? Why is that a well-paid job and not this? Why am I more likely to come out ahead if I do that instead of this? If you can understand the mechanics of it, the dynamics, then when the world changes, and it always does, you won't be stuck.
So if somebody picks up this as strategy, what do you hope is their big takeaway?
Well, the biggest thing I'm asking people to do is to find someone else and talk about it. Don't hide your strategy. Strategies are different than tactics. Tactics, they can be a surprise. They can be an advantage if they're a secret. Strategies, we know what Nike's strategy is. We know Netflix's strategy. We know Starbucks' strategy. It's not a secret, right? And can you tell me what yours is? That this famous college that you're going to almost go bankrupt to go to, why did you choose to do that instead of going to the state school with a full scholarship? If you can't tell me why, you have no business spending $250,000 to go make that mistake.
It's fascinating how these, it almost can start with questions, can't it? Just these really does in lots of ways. And one of the questions I find personally kind of front and center with this is the question of how do I know when to keep going versus when to pivot, when to change course. And really it's almost fundamental to leadership and strategy, and you touch on this a little bit in the dip.
Right.
How does somebody know, like, okay, this is the time just to grind and keep going versus I actually really need to pivot here? What's the difference?
So the shortest book I've ever published is called The Dip. And it was the first book about quitting, which is amazing because we all quit, right? Unless you're wearing a tutu to work, you quit ballet at some point. And what I argue in the book, first of all, is that being the best at what you do in the world in which you live is enormously valuable. That if you're going to go buy a bagel or call a locksmith or anything in between, who are you going to call? You're going to call the best one. Being third is worth very little. How do you become the best one? You don't quit when everyone else does. That at the gym, lots of people are there in January and February. They signed up at the beginning of the year. But the ones who are still there in March are more fit because they didn't quit. So that leads to the next question, which is, how do we know when to quit? Because we shouldn't do things that aren't working forever. And my answer is, first, has anyone else ever made it through this dip? Has anyone else made it through the darkness and gotten out to the other side? So organic chemistry is a bear. No one likes organic chemistry. You have to get through it to get into medical school. It's a dip. They built it, not because you need organic chemistry to be a doctor, but because they need a lot of people to drop out. So if you know that, when it gets hard, you can say, good news, this is hard. Now I know why it's here. If I can just make it through this on the other side, things will be better. Okay, that's different than saying, I'm going to be the first person who becomes a billionaire making YouTube videos, right? It looks like, Mr. Beast has finally figured out how to get almost there, but 1 out of 500,000 are bad odds. So if that's not a path, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try, but it means you should go in with your eyes open saying, there's a big chunk of lottery ticket here, that this isn't a well-worn path where I get through a dip and then I'm going to be fine. This is a really difficult path that's probably not going to get me to where I want to go.
In those days, there were very few people believing in Alibaba. And the first question I have to Jack is, how come this little boy born in Hangzhou, grown up in Hangzhou, who is not an engineer, who is not a geek, who had this formidable intuition of what technology will become, has moved from this origin to building what is today one of the most powerful companies in the world.
Jack, you've always said you don't look backwards, you look to the future. But before we get into the next chapter of your extraordinary life, I do want to touch a little bit on what Alibaba did over the last 2 decades. Forbes magazine was the first magazine to do a full cover story on you when you were just getting underway. At the time, you had about 150 on staff. Today, I think it's over 100,000 people are working with Alibaba and its affiliates. And what you have done is extraordinary, because what you achieved there is not just a company's success, but you empowered literally millions of entrepreneurs in China and around the world, including the United States, enabling people to sell business to business, business to consumers, and enabling businesses to get the financing to succeed. What you've done with Alipay is phenomenal in terms of enabling people who couldn't get financial resources to expand. You did it in a way where they didn't have to go to the traditional banking system, which wouldn't have paid attention to them anyway, but you enabled them to get resources and thrive. The data system that you built up enabled you to judge very quickly.
Well, if everybody agrees, then there is no opportunity. When people criticize you, you have to think. And I spend most of my time thinking about the future. I spend most of time listening to the complaints. Because people like me, we don't have money, we don't have technology, we don't have a strong relationship. The only thing we compete with the others is that how we see the future. If I believe the future like this way, and those people believe that way, of course we're different. And when we believe that is the future, we start to do it. We start to spend time, we start to gather people, we start to do little by little. And I think everybody can be successful if you really try hard. I started Alibaba in 1999 in my apartment. I talked to the 18 founders that one of the things we want to prove, if Jack Ma and his team can be successful, 80% of the people in the world, they can be successful because we don't have money, we don't have technology, we don't have almost nothing.
How do I tell young people? When most people complain, where the opportunity is. People start complaining, some people complain, people start to change themselves, change others. Where the opportunity is where the complaints are. Where the trouble, where's the opportunity? And I always believe that.
What was your biggest failure in scaling Alibaba, and what did you learn from?
We faced a lot of challenges, but I'm sure Alibaba is going to face more challenges. We worry every day. When I was young, when company was young, we thought, well, what if when Alibaba become that big, my life will be easier. Then now the companies the bigger the company, the more problems I have. So why you are still small company, enjoy it. You will never experience the happiness of operating a small company any longer when you're going to be too big. You have so much headaches, so many things happening. And people say, Jack, there are a lot of books about you, but there's none of the books I write myself. If there's one book I want to write in the future, it's called Alibaba 1001 Mistakes. We made so many mistakes. We had so many troubles. Believing or not, China built up an e-commerce company, built up an internet-related company. No internet connection at that time, no credit cards, no delivery system. So we make problems all the time. It's not easy, but we tell ourselves, we will be successful until we make 10,000 mistakes. We will be successful if we survive in any crisis. So when crisis came, we know it's a challenge. Everybody start to be united. We solve the challenge, then we complain each other. Before we solve the problem of the crisis, we should not complain. So, I have a problem in HR, I have a problem in financing, I have a problem in technology, I have a problem everywhere. Tell me. So that's why I become a mentor in entrepreneurs program in China. A lot of entrepreneurs have questions. When I listen to their questions, I say, oh my God, I have this problem too. So I would say we have gone through almost more than 90% of the problems that any entrepreneurs have met. This is what we feel proud. At the end of the day, I'm going to tell my kids, my grandchildren, it's not the thing we feel proud we made Alibaba. It's so many mistakes that we overcome, so many challenges we experience that make me feel proud. Life is about experience. So when you become entrepreneur, don't worry about the competitors. Don't worry about the mistakes. Don't worry about the challenges. Go through it. That's the great fun part of your business, of your experience. And then you got a courage, you got a wisdom, you got a team follow you.
What advice would you give to the young generation that follows you?
Well, I follow young generations. I come because there are so many young entrepreneurs. I come because it's the opportunity for small business. There are so many small businesses in Europe, excellent, and there are so many young people around the world and entrepreneurs. But let me share with you my thought. If you're an entrepreneur, if you want to do some business, think about, you should never think about succeed next month. You should never think about succeed next year. If you think about next month you will be successful, easy come, easy go. You will go down very quick. You should think about, is this thing will be good in 10 years? And have a patience. And the second is that get a good team. If somebody in your team is better than you are, follow him. If you think you are better, share with their ideas, your trouble, your thinking. And hardworking. There's no other choices. And look, your eyes, this eye, look at the customers. This eye, look at your team. And talking, share with your team all the thinking you have, making sure we're on the same, right? I hate a lot of people, this eye is US dollar, this is euro, they talk like RMB, you know. Nobody want to work with these people. They only talk about money. They have to tell, what do you want? What we agree, how we gonna do together. That's all the things. And giving yourself some time. Oh yeah, first I mean, people say I have different faces. I don't call it different faces. I think in my heart, I'm always curious. I'm curious about a lot of things. And I know when I started Alibaba, I know this is not the thing I want to do in all my life. I want to go back to teaching. So I think life is short. You should experience all kinds of things. I don't want to die in my office. I want to die on the beaches. Right? We work hard and we spend the money, but you spend the money, you should spend the money smart way to empower more people. Why we succeed? Because we're using technology to empower a lot of people who succeed. If you want to be more successful, empower more people. That's very simple. My advice to every young people. What do you have? What do you want? And what will you give up? If you do not think about these 3 questions every time, you will get lost. So I know what I should give up, what I want, and what I have. And I think I should pick up things I love, I'm good at, and I can make people happy, and I will be happy. That's it. Simple.
We're not interested in people that want to be on the board because they want to make $200,000 or $300,000 a year, you know, for 10% of their time. And we're not interested in the ones for whom it's a prestige item, and who want to go and check boxes or that sort of thing. We want our shareholders to walk in the shoes, our directors to walk in the shoes of shareholders. We want them to care a lot about the business, and we want to be smart enough so that they know enough about business that they know what they should get involved in and what they shouldn't get involved in.
When we buy businesses, we don't have managers to put in them. I mean, we're not buying them that way. We don't have a lot of MBAs around the office that we're, thank God. Yeah, we need management with the businesses that we buy. 3 times out of 4 or thereabouts, the manager is the owner, and we have to decide in that time when we meet them whether they love the business or love money. And we're not making a moral judgment. Charlie may, but I'm not making a moral judgment about whether it's better to love the business or love money, but it's very important for me to know which of the two is the primary motivator with them.
It's no secret that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are 2 of the most legendary investors to have existed. Just in 2023, the iconic duo brought the cash pile they store at Berkshire Hathaway to a whopping $157.2 billion. What can these legends of industry teach us? In their 2023 Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting, Warren and Charlie shared invaluable lessons and timeless wisdom.
I feel good. I don't know what's going to happen that day. Maybe nothing will happen, but maybe something will happen. And if nothing else, I'll roll some T-bills or something. But I work with the greatest group of people you can imagine. I mean, we like each other, and nobody is after anybody else's job or anything of the sort. It's ideal working conditions, and it's 5 minutes from my home or thereabouts. So I haven't spent my life commuting. I just can't imagine having anything better. And Berkshire has been paying. Nobody else in the United States, no individual, no corporation would ever pay any income tax, Social Security tax, gift tax, estate tax, anything else. 1,000 like Berkshire Hathaway would produce the revenue that's being produced by the federal government, that's being derived under the present tax code from everybody in the United States. And I don't feel badly about that, and I'd love to get it to what it's 1/500th or something of the sort done. We know how to do it. And we actually came from a money printing economy in World War II, which was required, and we suffered significant inflation. The price level, I mean, there are a million ways to judge it, but it's maybe 10 times what it was then or something like that. Well, that's getting close to the edge of where you don't want to hold dollars anymore. You want to hold something else. You want to hold real estate. You want to hold an interest in a business. There's a lot of good. Your best defense is your own earning power. If you're the best doctor in town, if you're the best lawyer in town, if you're the best teacher in town, or even if you're the 10th best, you're going to make a good living. You know, the economy is productive, and you will succeed with your talents, but you won't succeed by hoarding dollars. You'll just succeed by the fact that your value to the community, which is a rich community overall, is sustained. And so the best investment is always in yourself. You're lucky if you're in the United States. If you go around the world, you don't have a lot of choices in some places, but you should write your obituary and then try and figure out how to live up to it. You know, that's something you get wiser on as you go along. The business mistakes, you just want to make sure you don't make any mistakes that take you out of the game or come close to taking you out of your game. You should never have a night when you're worried about investing. I mean, assuming you have any money to invest at all, and you should spend a little bit less than you earn. And you can spend a little bit more than you earn, and then you've got debt, and the chances are you'll never get out of debt. I'll make an exception in terms of a mortgage on your house, but credit card debt, and we're in the credit card business big time, and the world will stay in the credit card business. But why get behind the game? And if you're effectively paying 12 or 14 or whatever percent you're paying on a credit card, you know, you're saying I'm going to earn more than 12 or 14% on money. And if you can do that, come to Berkshire Hathaway. Tom Murphy, the first time I met him, said two things to me. He said, you can always tell someone to go to hell tomorrow. Well, that was great advice then. And think of what great advice it is when you sit down at a computer and screw your life up forever by telling somebody to go to hell or something else in 30 seconds and you can't erase it. And you don't need to vilify anybody to make your point on subjects of discussion. And then give you another general piece of advice. I've never known anybody that was basically kind that died without friends. And I've known plenty of people with money that died without friends, including their family. I've seen a few people, including Tom Murphy Sr. I never saw him. I watched him for 50 years. I never saw him do an unkind act. I didn't see him do very many stupid acts either. I mean, it wasn't that he was non-discriminating. He just decided that there was no reason to do it. And wow, what a difference that makes in life. Charlie?
Well, it's so simple to spend less than you earn and invest shrewdly and avoid toxic people and toxic activities and try and keep learning all your life, et cetera, and do a lot of deferred gratification because you prefer life that way. And if you do all those things, you are almost certain to succeed. And if you don't, you're going to need a lot of luck. And you don't want to need a lot of luck. You want to go into a game where you're very likely to win without having any unusual luck.
I'd add one more thought, too. You need to know how people can manipulate other people, and then you need to resist the temptation to do it yourself.
Oh, yes, the toxic people who are trying to fool you or lie to you, who aren't reliable in meeting their commitments. The great lesson of life is get them the hell out of your life.
Yep.
and do it fast.
We've done various deals various ways. The best way to do it is just write people a check and get the stock. But we did that with TTI, but you can't always make the same deal. If we like the business well enough and the people well enough, we will tailor it differently. But our preference is to write a check and own the whole place and keep the management in place. So we are in the perfect sort of game, and we both enjoy it, and we have a lot of fun together, and we don't have to do anything we don't really believe in doing. I mean, we are not dictated to by any group, and so we get to follow our own. We get to forge our own destiny, and in a sense, forge the own principles by which we can run the company, and that's a huge luxury in life. And we don't want to be president of any other company in the world or CEO or anything else where we have to conform to certain things that we really don't want to conform to.
The lessons from Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett continue to guide us towards smarter, more principled investing. Remember, it's not just about making money. It's about making informed, ethical, and sustainable choices that stand the test of time. With the passing of Charlie, the next year will be one to watch as Warren navigates the industry on his own. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with fellow investors. Until next time, happy investing.